Oh, okay. Yeah. There you go.
Okay, I am very excited to interview this next gentleman that I met on LinkedIn. Believe it or not, he reached out and needed or was interested in questions based on my educational background. He's born and raised in Hawaii, graduate from Lutheran High School in Hawaii, but he's presently in BYU, Provo, Utah, majoring in business management and computer science. But I would love to have him share his perspective on how you went to Mongolia and you taught, right, for 2 years,
Okay.
sixth
Hmm.
through 12th grade, but how your passion seems to be to work with teenagers to equip them with important life skills. And we were just talking a little earlier that a lot of parents think that it's the academic achievements and getting the scholarship and getting into the right college that prepares them for success. But Cameron, how did you even identify the need and then talk about what you did last summer when you
Yeah.
actually um, took your dream or your little passion project and you made it
Yeah.
into reality in one summer, right?
Yeah. So what you said, I was in Mongolia and I taught 12th grade English. I used that as an opportunity to teach some of these ideas. I'm talking to teenagers and I'm like, well, you might as well teach them important life skills because these are things that I wish I knew when I was their age.
Hmm.
Through interviewing parents for this business idea, that was one of the first questions I would ask them is, what is something that you wish you knew when you were a teenager? And the parents know that they need to know these things, but the teenagers don't understand the importance of it. And then sometimes, maybe perhaps the parents don't even know that the teenagers need to know it because they don't know it themselves.
Right.
So I just talked to a lot of people, and like you said, I interviewed you in on LinkedIn. But what really started it was when I was in Mongolia. It was for a church service mission. And so I was there for ecclesiastical purposes, but I also had the opportunity of teaching English. But because I was there for a church mission, we had companions and we needed to be with them all the time.
Oh,
There were
wow.
certain people that had very terrible social skills, like the worst. And so I read a book called How to Win Friends and Influence People, and I had some companions. And I was like, you guys are breaking every single rule in this book. And it's just like,
Can you
it's not
share a
taught.
few of the rules that they
Yeah.
broke?
Um, and I don't know. I don't want to share too much information
Right,
on
right.
it.
But I mean, just
Who
some
was,
rules that
yeah.
we,
Hmm.
as we sometimes don't even, we might know
Hmm.
it. You're saying they
Yeah.
were unaware, but sometimes
Mm.
we either let our emotions get in the way or we just
Yeah.
aren't aware, right?
Yeah. And so I knew this guy, and I feel like he was coming from a really good place. He was like, why don't I have friends? Like you have a lot of friends. I don't understand why I don't have friends. Because he's like, I have good qualities, right? And I was like, well, the way you talk to people, it makes them feel like horrible. You talk in a very condescending way. If somebody says, I like this, they're like, oh, that's the worst, right? Why are people going to want to hang around with you? And I was like, and he points to other people. He's like, there are other people just like that. I'm like, okay, well, they also have redeeming qualities, right? They're funny. So those qualities that you guys share in common, nobody likes that. But at the same time, everybody likes to hang around people that are funny or people that share the same opinions as them. They're
Hmm.
able to connect. But you don't make an effort on any of those things.
Interesting.
You have your area of expertise, and if people don't like talking about that, you're not able to communicate or connect with them, right? So you have to go to where they are and talk about the things that they're interested in. And so that's just a brief
Wow.
example of what I saw in that one.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so taking that and being like, he's not the only one. Sure, there's lots of others, myself included, right? When I was in high school, I didn't know most of these things. And so just looking back at that experience and trying to connect the dots, I'm like, it was definitely for this reason that people didn't like me.
Hmm.
And the people that did like me was for this reason. And just trying to develop myself and then being able to help others with that same realization.
Wow. So, what do you think are the major life skills that
Mhm.
all of us need to teach our teens or even younger kids, right? I mean, if the younger they are, if they're introduced to it, they will know like how to be a good friend or how to handle
Yeah, I think
finances or
sorry to interrupt, but I think some people subconsciously or maybe unintentionally learn these skills.
yeah,
The conversation I had with you when I first met you, you were talking about EQ,
yeah.
and people develop the skills just by observation and being able to, like connect the dots there. Like if I act this way, this person acted, or
Hmm.
it didn't seem like they liked it. So maybe I shouldn't ever do that again. Some people aren't able to connect the dots. And so it's better if you're able to show the principles,
Hmm.
show scenarios, and then get them to think, what are instances where you've broke this rule? How did the person react to it? And being like, what can you change in that scenario? And so just making it very realistic for them with whatever age they are, right? Whether it be you, I'm sure you work with parents, you said, right?
Well, parents, and then on the other end, it is
Hmm.
students age 5 through the teenage years. So I am learning to even how do you emotionally connect with a 5-year-old? Because if I
Hmm.
don't connect with them, it's not going to be very fun.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
It'll be a waste, right? So this is where
Hmm.
if I have someone who's like, I don't want to do this, and it's like, okay, how do I flip switch it? And it takes time to learn how to, right, work with different personalities or even just have a positive interaction. So you mentioned that need the emotions or no, the power of thought.
Okay.
That is something that
I really like that topic. So it goes hand in hand with, I think, critical thinking as well. When I was doing these interviews for high school students, college students to see how big the need is here,
Mhm.
I would ask them, rate yourself on critical thinking skills. I couldn't really ask them to say, like, how well do you manage your thoughts? But
Mm.
critical thinking skills, because it's the ability to take in information, evaluate it in an objective way, and then to be able to see it clearly.
Did they
And so,
understand what that meant when you said critical thinking, or did they sometimes ask, well, what do you mean by that?
yeah, so when I would interview people, I would just ask them how they would rate themselves on these different topics without clarifying what it meant. That way I could get their initial reaction to like how important these topics were.
Hmm.
And then I would clarify if they asked. But the majority of the time I would feel, or I felt like most people didn't understand like fully what it meant.
Hmm.
So that's just my opinion on that one.
Well, because
I
you're not
can't.
really taught though, right? I always think
Mhm.
I tell kids you're told in school study this, this, and this, but they're not taught how to
Mhm.
think, how to
Yeah.
process, right? How to
Mhm.
even do what they're told to do.
Yeah. And to me, for what I've been experienced, what I've been seeing on social media, I feel like a lot of people aren't really being critical thinkers in the sense of, if you really think about it, about half the population is one way and the other half is the other way. So don't you feel like both parts have valid reasoning to it,
Hmm.
instead of the conversations I've heard are a lot of people just demonizing each other.
Yes. No
Like if you
empathy,
want,
right? Yeah.
yeah, no empathy. Yeah, I mean, to your point, no empathy whatsoever. And if you don't have empathy and you're trying to convince somebody of your way of thinking, you have absolutely no shot. If you're
Exactly.
saying you're an idiot for thinking that, they're
Right.
never going to agree with you. They're like, oh, why didn't I think of that? Why didn't I think of that?
Exactly.
I was an
Yeah, I
idiot.
didn't know I was an idiot. Thanks for
Yeah.
letting me know
Well,
that.
today I learned something new. And so just like,
Why do you think people sorry to interrupt. Why do people are they're not aware that
mhm,
it's not, it's like you have to see it my way
mhm,
because if you don't, like you said, you are
yeah,
incompetent, you are an idiot, you are why do you think it's like being unaware?
yeah. So that's why there's an order in which I taught the classes. The first one is the power of thought, and it talks about thinking and all the different facets of it, like how to think, how we process information, being exposed to cognitive biases that everybody has. And I I see it on the daily, the cognitive biases I have, and that's just a natural reaction. But
Hmm.
once you're aware of it, then you can start to process the information correctly. You'd be like, oh, I think this because I identify like this politically. Now,
Mm-hmm.
is that actually correct based off of principles that I believe in? Right. And so just exposing people to cognitive biases they have. And there's a really good example that I use. I stole it from Stephen Covey's Seven Habits,
Mm-hmm.
the one with the paradigms or the pictures that he shows. There's one picture and it has an old woman and a young woman in it.
Oh, I love that. Mm-hmm.
And so he shared the study where he did it, or I'm not sure if he did it, but somebody did it with his Harvard class. They split them up in two, and they showed half the class the young woman, half the class the old woman, or like a more accentuated picture where it's clear there's only one way to see it. This
Mm-hmm.
one's the old woman, this one's the young woman, and then they brought the class together and showed them the picture where it's both.
Mm-hmm.
And it proved the cognitive bias. The people that initially saw the old woman in the next picture. People that saw the young woman in the next picture, and then they're arguing. They're like, no, it's an old woman, and they're like, no, it's young. Like,
Yeah.
what are you saying, right? They're seeing the same things, but they're seeing it from different perspectives, and they can both be right. And I think with a lot of things in life, it is that way. With when we're talking power of thought today, say you fail a test, you can have those both perspectives, right? You could see it as I'm a failure, I'm no good at anything. And I listened to your to some of the podcasts you had with some of the other people. I think it was the last one you did yesterday, or maybe you
Mm-hmm.
didn't do it yesterday. He was talking about how he teaches his students like we're here to fail,
Oh
right?
my gosh, that was life-changing because
Right.
I
And
usually say, it's all right that you made a mistake. And I'm
uh-huh.
thinking I am actually saying it's okay to lose, right? Instead of saying, hey, let's encourage our kids to make mistakes. And I
Mm-hmm.
thought, wow, we're not
Mm-hmm.
taught that.
Yeah. And I mean, it's the same thing, the same picture, same
Yeah.
experience, but it's a different perspective on it, on the same thing. And so just showing that example and being like, everything in life is that way. There's so many different ways to look at it. And which way are you seeing it? Which way do you think is the most correct way? And if there's two ways, I generally believe you should take the optimistic approach.
Definitely. So besides power of thought, I know you had
Mhm.
other areas.
Yeah. Are you interested in like what are the
Definitely.
other areas?
Definitely.
So it is kind of hard because not everybody's going to be interested in all the areas, right? But the way I plan the curriculum is it's in order because you need to start with the power of thought in order to understand every other principle
Hmm.
correctly. You need to teach critical thinking and how thinking is even formed in order to show the importance of social skills. Like,
Hmm.
how do you view relationships? How do you view conversations? And a good example of that is what we were saying before with political conversations. If your objective is trying to change somebody's point of view, you probably shouldn't do it with the in the manner that most people do it, right? And so now you're thinking about what should I do in order to accomplish that goal instead of I feel because this person said this, I feel hurt and I want to make them feel hurt. I don't think that's most people's objectives. It's just their emotional reaction in those type of
Definitely.
conversations. And so social skills, skills for building a career, networking, and the value in that. The other one is building wealth. And when I say building wealth, and when I've asked teenagers what they thought of that, the initial reaction is it's not that important because they see it as just like trying to accumulate a lot of money and rich. And
Interesting.
that's it's true, that's not important in life. But there's that study that shows there's a correlation with happiness and money to a certain point. I think it was 70,000, and 70,000 is not the number, right? It's just the principle behind it. As long as you're able to take care of your basic needs and not worry about money, now you're not worried all the time and you can focus on other things, right? And so I think money causes a lot of people heartache. And so
Oh, big
getting
time
mhm,
stress.
getting people to understand that principle and getting them to plan their lives so that it's not a stressor in their
Hmm.
life. And so building wealth to me is more so it's also something that my professor taught. is if you were not able to work tomorrow or you got into an accident, how long would you be able to last? And to be honest, I feel like for a lot of people, it's not that long, right?
Hmm.
And so he's all about planning and building different sources of revenue. It's like if you want to be a teacher, be a great teacher, but also do these things on the side in order to set yourself up for success in the future, freeing up your time, freeing up, giving yourself more options on what you can do. And then the last one is about stress and anxiety management. It's tied to the power of thought, but approaching it from the biological sense,
Hmm.
like what happens physiologically, but also how your thoughts impact that. And so I think we had a brief discussion on that one on the phone, right?
Yeah. So, what do you think is the one thing teenagers can do to reduce anxiety and stress? Because I'm amazed at how much stress these 12-year-olds, even the 5-year-olds, are like, I need to learn my letters and numbers, and
Yeah.
you cannot. It's so hard because we know our letters and numbers, but when you keep getting it wrong and you're 5, and you
Hmm.
think, oh my gosh, how am I supposed to go through life? Because they don't realize, right?
Hmm.
I tell the parents, I mean, how many 15-year-olds do you know who don't know the alphabet or who don't know
Hmm.
numbers? But at the time, the parents are stressed too because they're not reaching like the milestones that you're
Hmm.
supposed to reach. So, you
Yeah,
know,
I think that's a good example, and it's also a good opportunity for parents to teach their kids great principles. I remember I was helping my brother with math, and this was when he was younger. He actually just graduated, or he's in college now, but he graduated last year
hmm
from high school. And I remember when he was maybe in fourth or fifth grade, I was helping him with like the multiplication table, and he was, yeah, I was like, what is going on here? But he was like crying and he's like, I can't do it.
yes.
And he's like, I'm no good. And he's comparing, because he went to Punahou, right? He's comparing himself to all these people that are very smart. And he's like, oh, I'm dumber than all my friends. And he's saying all these negative things, which you could be like, well, it's true. Like all his other friends could do it. But for me, I was the one that was there, and it broke my heart, right, to see my brother cry like that, and to see his, to understand he has very little opinion of himself because of this stupid math test.
Because of math, right? Because not
Yeah.
knowing your basic
Uh-huh.
computations, right? So how do you
Mm.
yeah, I would love to hear how you handle that because
Yeah.
that is such a common stressor where how come
Mm.
they know it and I got
Mm.
an F and all my friends got A's, or
Mm.
that same, the
Yeah.
danger of comparison.
Yeah. So, and this might not be true for everybody, but I had a suspicion that he didn't try very hard. And I asked him, how long did you spend studying this? Like how much effort have you actually put into doing this? And there's going to be examples where people have spent a lot of effort doing it. But I think in those cases, they're also probably taking the wrong approach, or maybe they're making up for lost time.
Hmm.
Maybe they're like in physics or science concepts, a lot of it builds off of each other. And because they spend a lot of time here, they think I put in just as much effort as this person, but they don't realize the reason they don't understand is because there was all that other stuff that they weren't learning. And so they're just trying to make up for lost time. I told them, hey, look, it like what you're saying, think about it. It's very negative. But I'm telling you, it's not that way. I don't think you put much effort. Like, what do you think? And he's like, yeah, I think so. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm telling you, I sat here with you and you've done it 3 times now, and you failed every 3 times, and that's how you see it. But I'm seeing it every single time you've done it, you've gotten better, and just like trying to change their perspective on things, right? Back to that analogy of the two faces. There's
Hmm.
so many different ways to see the same thing, and I'm just trying to get them in the process of like seeing it differently. And so I was like, you've gotten better. You need to put in the time if you want to get better at anything. Saying I can't do it and I'm no good, it's just a flat out lie. Because I guarantee you, all your other friends that did it, right? It might have came naturally to them, but there are a lot of people that needed to put in the time and effort. Right. And so you need to do the same if you want to do well on this. And so he did, and hopefully he understood the principle there, where it's like, for me, I have a lot of confidence in that because I was able to just see the principle in one area of my life, whether it be cross country. It's like I
Mm,
wasn't the best, but every time I worked out and put in all my effort, I got better at it. And it's true for, I feel like, everything in life. You
oh
might not
yeah.
be as good as you'd like to be, and you might not accelerate as fast as, and when I say as fast, that's with learning or any skill that you're trying to develop, but you need to give yourself credit when there is, right? I've gotten better, or whether it be like you're trying to lose weight, like, hey, well, I showed discipline here by not eating that extra slice of cake that I wanted.
Right,
I
right.
only ate one. So it's all perspective, in my opinion.
That's a really powerful lesson, though, because I think a
Mm,
lot of us are hard on ourselves. And
mhm,
I notice that some kids, right, you're either strong in math or strong in reading. There are people who are strong in both, but then we get so critical,
mhm.
right, when we
Yeah.
cannot master something. And like you said, the other person might have, well, just had a natural talent for it, and numbers
Mhm,
come easy. And then
mhm.
the other um, choice would be that they studied again and again and again. So it didn't come
Mm.
easy to them. But like you said, do you talk about like just the self discipline where I don't want to do it? You know, a lot of my students like, "Oh, I don't
Yeah.
want to do it. It's just boring, or I'll just use a calculator." And then, sometimes you can't use a calculator and they get
Mhm.
upset. Why can't I just use a calculator? But it is a
Yeah.
mental skill, you know?
Yeah. I think in that case, right, you're just like trying to explain why is it important.
Hmm.
I think for the math one, I don't remember. It was actually a long time ago that I remember that with my brother in that example. But I think I was trying to show him like, hey, look, you can do this. And if you're able to do it, you're proving to yourself that you can do hard things. Right. And isn't that important for you to know? Because right now you don't feel that way. But I guarantee you can do it. Look how much you improved. Just put in the time and effort. And maybe you don't think this is important, but it is absolutely important that you prove to yourself that you can do hard things because it affects every other aspect of your life. Um, Actually, my brother was one of the students that I taught in this thing that I did last summer. So a long time passed. But in the power of thought, I wanted to show them how much your thoughts and your words influence your life.
Yes.
Going back to that example, just because it's out there, right? It's like he said, I'm no good at math. All my other friends are better than me. There's no point.
Hmm.
It's like that's the thought. And he's verbally saying this. I'm like, think about that. It started with your thought and your perception of yourself. And what do you think the action is going to be because of that? Like, is he going to study? Is he going to put in the effort? Because he already has the self view of himself, right? That he
Right. It's
can't
self
do it.
defeating. Right.
Mm-hmm. And so, because of that, now there's feedback. He doesn't study. He's constantly doing bad on his tests. So he doesn't believe he can do it. And it's just like a snowball effect. And so
Hmm.
that's just one example. But I try to use whatever examples students give me. And to me, it works with every single example that they given. They haven't been able to give me an example that it doesn't work for.
Wow. So final question.
Yeah.
How did you learn this? Where do you think you were influenced by your parents or a
Mhm.
teacher, or where did this come from? Because,
Yeah.
you're so wise at such a young age. I mean, when I, you know, talked to you, I was
Mhm.
like, oh my gosh, I want to know more about how you came to be, who you are.
I'm really glad you asked that question so I can give credit to him. I had a amazing high school teacher. I think he teaches at Marino right
Hmm.
now. His name is Mr. Rappling, Pete Rappling, and he would teach like world history and calculus and just like this variety of subjects. He
Wow.
had a huge stack of books in his office, and a huge stack is definitely underselling it because it was just a mess of books. And he read all of them, but he would take the time to teach principles in class, and I really appreciated it. He would take the time to, if somebody had a question, he would answer it even though it had nothing to do with the subject. And so hopefully I'm not putting him in a bad light there.
Wow.
But I remember he would always say, like, attitude is everything. The person who thinks today is going to be a good day and the person who thinks today is going to be a bad day are both right.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking about that. I'm like, it's 90% true, right? Like, what if my mom dies? That's not going to be a good day, even if I want it to be. But then I've read so many books on the topic now. As a Man Thinketh, The Strangest Secret. I talked to him last year when I was preparing this, and he recommended Man's Search for Meaning.
Hmm.
And all of the books, they give great examples on how important it is to manage our thoughts and be aware of how powerful they are in our lives, right? So if Viktor Frankl, a psychologist that was in the concentration camp, can say like, they couldn't take that away from me. They couldn't take my ability to choose how I thought of this. Then how
That is
much more should
so, yeah, that
I?
just knowing that he, if someone in
Mhm,
a concentration camp can have that optimistic
mhm.
thought and
Yeah.
strength, then we can definitely
Mhm.
practice that.
We have so much, right? Like I'm so glad that I've never had to experience that, and I could secondhand experience it through his
Hmm.
accounts.
Hmm.
But it's a great reminder to me that if he can be happy, then anybody can, right? If he can find happiness in his situation, I have so much that I should be happy for. And so I try to do my best to teach people like, hey, look, we have a lot to be grateful for, even if terrible things have happened to us. You need to, I don't know, when I teach this kind of stuff, depending on who I teach it to, sometimes it comes off as victim blaming, and I'm definitely not trying to um, put that on them, because it's, people experience a lot of things that aren't their faults.
Hmm.
And I'm like, hey, look, it's an empowering message when you're like, I'm so sorry that happened to you and that sucks, but here's the thing, like, you can be happy, like,
Hmm.
let's, and it might not be easy, but it is simple. And so I tell people that, where it's like it's hard, you say just like change your thoughts, and it's not that easy. And like, I know it's not that easy, because I've experienced some things where it feels almost impossible to change your thoughts, but it is worth it. And I think your life will be better if you gain the habit and gain the skill set of being able to manage your thoughts properly.
Definitely. Well, don't you think struggles, I mean, build resilience, which is why if
Hmm.
you haven't struggled, then you don't realize, wow, life is right. It's easy, but
Mm.
then it's like a 5-year-old. Oh my gosh, it's raining.
Mm.
My whole life is over. But
Yeah.
then you realize when you're older, okay,
Mm.
so my jacket got ruined or something. It's like you said, perspective.
Mhm. Yeah, and to what you said about struggles
Yes.
build resilience. And I think you'll have people that are extremely resilient that have a lot of struggles, but it doesn't build resilience all the time. And that's more so why I feel like the education is important, is that sometimes it crushes people. And I just want to be able to help as many people as possible, where it's like, give them the tools and the skill
Hmm.
set to be able to be resilient, to be able to be like, see the importance of it as well.
Well, I wish you the best of luck. I think what you have is such a gold mine because, like you said, it cannot be, just academics. And you can't be like, yeah, you know what? When you struggle, yeah, you get stronger or you'll be
Mm.
resilient. Like you said, it's like the mindset and the tools, almost like
Mm.
the mental tools, right? Because
Mm.
it's not something that we're born with. And
Mm.
you've read a lot and you share a lot. And I think that's why, like that teacher that you had, or just the
Yeah,
experience
it was
that you
great.
have. Amazing. Well, thank you so much for doing this for me. I know that
Thanks
we
for
had just
talking. It
met, and
was
I thought,
fun.
yeah, I had a lot of fun, and you are just so inspiring because I think a lot of people in it. Can you just share your age? Would you mind?
I'm 27.
I just
I
am
know I don't look
amazed.
27, but
Uh,
I know I look younger, right?
But it's amazing how a lot of people in their 20s, though, I mean, not to judge, but some people say, you guys are not having the foresight or just the mental strength. But I think if you don't
Mm.
study it and you've
Hmm.
made it, I think, like a passion to study, so
Hmm.
you're aware of it. But how can
Yeah.
we expect people to be aware if they're unaware?
Hmm.
And that's where
Yeah,
you, right? That's
exactly.
where you come in.
Mm.
Like what you're
Yeah.
proposing is.
Yeah, of course. And you asked me to get some, I know you have to go soon, but you asked me to
Mhm.
get some of the students perspective on the class, right? And so they said
Yes.
exactly that. They were like, it was really good introductory to a lot of the concepts that we weren't exposed to. And I really like one of them. It was a it made me feel really good. I'm gonna be honest. He was like, I still look at my notes sometimes, and I was like, what, really? I didn't know that it left an impact on them, which I appreciate that at least. And to their credit, they were amazing students, right? Wanting
No,
to
but
learn
that's
about
a
stuff like that.
testimonial, though, that I mean,
Hmm.
kids of all ages, like you said, it's not taught in school. Their
Hmm.
parents are not aware, and it
Yeah.
is an important skill, whether
Hmm.
they're not aware of it, or they don't have time, or they
Hmm.
don't know how to teach it. Because then it
Hmm.
comes off as a lecture, or you got to save
Yeah.
money, you got to learn about APR, you have to,
Yeah.
and then it just closes the doors because they're thinking,
Yeah.
okay, I don't want to. But
Mm.
then you emotionally connect with them, show them why it's important. And look,
Mm.
they are referring to, you know what? I see a book in your future where it could just be something where, it's something that would be
Mm.
really good to use in
Yeah.
like a life skills class. Some of
Yeah.
these schools are leaning, on
Uh-huh.
like it's like study skills, or one of my students is taking a leadership class
Hmm.
and they just talked about, like maybe career prep, but it's
Mm.
also like how do you build like the mental mindset?
Yeah. I was just talking to my girlfriend the other day. We were in Target and I was like, I'd love to write a book like probably when I'm 50, have more credibility and more years behind. But I think that'd be awesome. From my understanding, you have a book that's out, correct?
I have two books out, but you know what? Don't wait till you're 50 because you know what is amazing? Remember that? I
Uh-huh.
don't know if you know that there was a boy who was 9
Hmm.
and he died. He had some kind of debilitating disease, but it was like
Mm.
lessons that he's learned.
Okay.
But just talking to you, it could be, what you've learned in your
Yeah.
20s or how you
Hmm.
inspired teens, and then people of all ages will benefit because a lot of us in our 50s aren't even aware, right,
Mm.
of what
Yeah.
needs to be even thought of. We
Hmm.
don't even know how to think because we are just going along and doing our thing, and then we're not
Hmm.
even focusing on, hey, wait a minute, I should focus on the power of thought. Unless you're reading the books that
Uh-huh.
we read,
Yeah.
you
Well,
don't.
I appreciate that. I'll make sure to put that in the foreword if I write a book in the
Yeah,
next 2 years.
I will
Karen,
check in on you.
yeah,
Yeah, and say, you
Karen
know what? I mean, I
made me
will
write a book.
definitely help you on that journey because it's something that needs to be. I think everyone has a gift and everyone has a
Mm.
story, and you have
Yeah.
a very important one to share.
Well, I appreciate that. And I looked at a lot of your YouTube content, right?
Oh,
And I was enjoying it. If you wanted if you have some time tomorrow, I want to talk about like that YouTube content if that's
oh,
possible.
definitely. That's my favorite subject to talk about. You have.
It'll just be 10 minutes. I just want to let you in on some insights that I've learned over the years, like just doing some like YouTube consulting.
Definitely.
I
Oh,
think it
thank
might
you.
help.
Yeah, because that's one strength that you guys have because you are like the social
Mm.
media geniuses without even knowing it since
Yeah.
it's your forte. Okay, well, we'll connect later and thank you so
Yeah.
much. Enjoy your Friday and we'll talk later.
Yeah. You have a good rest of your Friday.
Thanks. Take care.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.